All right, welcome to the Krug Show, everybody. Thursday night, September the 26th, 2024. Hope everybody's having a great day. Welcome to the Krug Show, brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Also brought to you by Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles, 205 Cypress Avenue. That's where they're located in Pacific Grove. Call my friend Anthony Catania. He's at 831-521-5264 for all your sports cards and collectible needs. And he's a big sports fan as well. And
one would hope, given that he runs a sports card collectible store, it'd be kind of shitty if he wasn't into this game thing that we do.
Exactly. And then being a sponsor of a sports related YouTube channel.
He holds his nose the whole time. He's, if I could just go back to my literature.
Will these guys start talking about botany or I'm out of here? He says, he sent me a text today. He said, love the Purdy press conference today. The kid is a leader, special person.
Yeah.
And I only reason I read that is because, Anthony's got, he's running Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles. He's, he's got other things to do in his day, but, people who are following it even from afar, if it's you're listening to Purdy, you're watching Purdy, and it's like there's some weird. I get these like Derek Jeter vibes, the way that Jeter like winner and like just always finds a way to say the right thing. I mean, like, I'm not Jeter with his gift baskets, but I mean,
not to make that joke.
Purdy's more of a Midwestern, already married, so he's beyond the gift basket moment. But Jeter never said anything wrong, and I saw him in Oakland clubhouses when the Yankees would roll in, and the media would ask stupid questions, and he never flinched. He would never say anything wrong. And Purdy kind of reminds me of that kind of a personality, in that you ask him a question. He looks you in the eye, but then he like looks down, gets into his like thinking mode, and like gives you this incredibly articulate, well-spoken answer that totally answers your question, doesn't dodge it in the slightest, and then finishes by kind of looking at you and kind of, giving you a nod and on to the next one. I mean, he's the most sincere. I mean, I could see why John Deere and all these corporate sponsors are like, get me Brock Purdy, because he's genuine, he's real, he's likable. You know what I mean? And he's now he's playing great ball.
And he's an everyman, right? I mean, you look at Brock Purdy, you'd think he was the intern. Turns out he's the quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers, and a damn good one at that. So there's a relatability there as well. That's just such a prerequisite, though, of being a good quarterback in the modern NFL. You have to be good at the press conference. I don't care how good you are as a play caller, as a head coach, or whatever it is you do. You got to be able to win the press conference. And this is a head coach in a quarterback league. And Kyle, for all of his warts and his general begrudgingly press conferences, he doesn't want to be up there. He doesn't want to be taking questions from us. He thinks we're lesser than. He's probably right. He does a pretty good job with them. He lies a lot, but mostly about injuries. But he does a pretty good job with them. Brock's out of this world, and that's a pretty impressive thing to have, both a head coach and a quarterback who are really, really good at that, because I really do think that it's an important part of the gig.
By the way, I'll figure out the right button to push to get our names back on the screen. I mean, that is Dieter Kurtenbach from KMBR. I am Larry Krueger. Well, it says that.
Are you, though? Who's to say?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I may not be, but I am. And this is the Krug Show, and it is brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, and they do have two locations, and they are in Emeryville, and they are in Corte Madera, and they are open 7 days a week. Go say hi to Damon. Go say hi to Mary. Get some brisket. Get some brisket chili. Get some spicy brisket chili. Have some potato salad. It's a fantastic restaurant. You'll love it. Tell them the Krug sent you. Go say hi to Damon and Mary and get that brisket.
Love it.
They always say, do you want the marbled side or the other side? What say you, Dieter? You're a man who knows his food.
I'll take any brisket you can give me, but you're telling me that there's a side that's fattier and a side that's not.
Right. Out of your side?
Right. I'm gonna need that marbling, baby. I'm gonna need. We're not here for a health kick. We're here to get some of that sweet, sweet action. So let's do it right.
Marbling. Marvelous marbling. Okay. So, and of course, we're also brought to you by, as you can see on the bottom of the screen, Better.
Yes.
The live stream is sponsored by Better, the official daily fantasy sponsor of the Krug Show. Use Better to make daily fantasy lineups, and you can win real money. Download the app below. Make sure you use the promo code Niners, NINERS, to get your first deposit matched up to $200. And we'll get into that in a bit. But before we get into the Better, we've got one quote that I want you to, to me, this is very, very interesting. I've got this, or one stat on, yes. I said, quote, one stat on Brock Purdy. That's amazing.
Okay.
This, to me, there are very few. I mean, there's so many stats, Dieter.
Yes.
And he's got great numbers, right? I mean, Brock Purdy is playing really well right now. I think everybody knows that.
One would hope.
CMC's out. He's the offensive player of the year. He didn't have Kittle this week, didn't have Debo, and he still, threw for 292 yards, 3 touchdowns, and didn't have an interception.
Right.
And if you look at his numbers, second in passing yards, second in yards per attempt, first in completion percentage over expectation, fourth in fourth in completion percentage per drop back.
Okay.
His time to throw against the Rams was 3.39, which was the most of anybody in the NFL last week.
That's right.
So the Rams at times rushed 3, a couple times they rushed 2, and they dropped, 9 guys into coverage. Those are all amazing stats, and he's playing very, very well. But the one that's the most amazing, I saw this today. This is incredible. This is a stat that listed the quarterbacks who have had 110 or better quarterback ratings in a game since Brock entered the league. And this was week 14 of 2022. Okay. So since week 14 of 2022, these are the number of 110 plus quarterback rating games these quarterbacks have had. Listen to this.
Yeah.
Dak Prescott, 8. Lamar Jackson, 6. Patrick Mahomes, 4. Matthew Stafford, 4. Josh Allen, 4. Jalen Hurts, 4. Brock Purdy, wait for it, 15.
Yeah.
15. Dieter, there's a lot of different ways you can say stats and massage stats, and I believe wholeheartedly in the old saying, stats lie and liars use statistics. But in a lot of ways, that stat does not lie. It's a very straightforward stat. It's basically saying it's not cherry picking since Brock's 7th game, blah, 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 blah. No, it's basically saying
some bitch showed up. Here's what the number is.
Since he has been an NFL player, his very first taste of it, he's got 15 games of a 110 or better quarterback rating, and the closest is Prescott with 8.
Yeah.
That is just a staggering. And you think of Mahomes as the best in the game, he's got 4. Purdy's got 15. And this is not, hey, what has Brock done in the X number of games he's played compared to the first number of games of these guys. This is what they're doing right now. This is what they are.
Right.
And it's a big enough sample size since it's 2022 week 14 that it's kind of like also somewhat defining. It's not just like a little window. It's like, that's kind of a defining stat. When you hear, I mean, that's a major one right there.
That's more than half of his starts.
What is he?
26 starts in the regular season now?
Yeah, something like that.
Might even be fewer.
That's a 20. I think it's I think he was 20. 23
it's
and
hard.
5.
I always
23 and 5
playoffs.
coming into the year, I think.
Yeah, I always include playoffs. So it is
So
what it is.
24 and 7.
If it isn't half, it's sure as hell pretty close, and no one else is pulling half on that rank. It's a wildly impressive number. Two ways, if you wanted to pick at it, you could. One, none of these other guys have Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Kyle Shanahan, probably the most important aspect of that. And two, yeah, I mean, Shanahan's system, and I'm more of a QBR guy personally than the old school quarterback rating. There are kind of
always said that. You've always said you're more of a QBR guy.
I mean, people know that about me. They know that I'm a QBR man.
They see you coming. They're like,
guy.
oh, hey,
this
QBR
guy.
QBR guy.
So like Dak Prescott being second on the list is also somewhat indicative. But I'll say this. Brock Purdy is, I find it always so interesting when people call Brock Purdy a game manager, because you and I both know when you watch Brock Purdy, it does not feel like the game is being managed. There is some serious risk being taken by number 13 there, and he's a showman. I mean, there is something on the edge about his game. So for him to have that level of efficiency, and I think if we know anything about quarterback rating, it rewards efficiency.
Right.
As opposed to maybe the big play potential, all this stuff. Just can you complete your damn passes and not throw interceptions? For him to be that as efficient as this number suggests, and to play the style that he plays, I think speaks volumes to Brock Purdy, the quarterback. And yeah, I know that a lot of people probably look at the numbers like this and then say, oh, game manager. I don't know how you haven't seen Brock Purdy play football yet. I recommend watch last week. It was a pretty indicative performance by Brock Purdy, all things considered. It's a special dude, and I don't even think that we need to have a conversation moving forward about how much or how much he should get, how much he will get. Like, whatever he signs for is A-okay by me, because he is far beyond just competent. He's really, really, really good. And is he a game changer, a game breaker? That's for other people to decide. The drop-off from Brock Purdy to somebody else, anybody else, is going to be significant, because guys like Brock Purdy should not just hit the open market. They shouldn't be allowed to leave. Give him whatever the hell he wants. You don't have to worry about Brock Purdy, and that in and of itself is worth its weight in gold these days.
Steve-O knows says, sup, everyone. Krug and Dieter, the best show of the week. Keep it up, guys. Then we jump right to Mitchell and Ness. Is this going to be another stream where Larry's trying to police the way everyone feels about Brock Purdy?
Well,
yes,
listen, if
I
you
am
don't like Brock Purdy,
police.
We're going to come to your homes.
Yes, we're gonna Gestapo. We're gonna break down.
That's exactly right.
We're gonna break down the door, and we're gonna clad you in a 13 jersey, and we are gonna leave.
You will like the Brock Purdy. Yeah, that's why I'm here.
That's my quarterback. That's my quarterback.
Listen, we've seen some pretty average quarterbacks. We've seen some spectacular quarterbacks. We've seen some great quarterbacks. We've seen some just absolute ass quarterbacks. We operate in a world where people are going to talk themselves back into Daniel Jones. He makes $40 million a year. Talk ourselves into Deshaun Watson and whatever the hell's going on there. I mean, let's just. I don't care if you think Brock Purdy's the fourth best quarterback in the NFL or the 14th. The dude's pretty damn good, and the 49ers are in good hands with him, regardless of how good those hands are, in your opinion. You don't want them going anywhere.
If you had to say, we'll move off of Purdy after this, but
I need to police some more thoughts. It's Minority Report.
If I said to you, give me 3 quarterbacks in history that you think Purdy reminds you of. Give me 3 comps on Purdy, or let's go back and forth. We'll go back and forth, and we'll go 3 each.
Give me your first. I have one.
The first one I would say reminds me of. I mean, I'll go super old school, but
nice.
I think there is a competitive. I like the quickness, the competitiveness, the escape out the back door reminded me, like he showed as a rookie. Reminds me a little bit of my youth of Fran Tarkenton running around.
I knew you were going to go there. And
you know what? Reminds me of Fran Tarkenton. He's because Fran Tarkenton threw for massive yards, huge yards. And Fran Tarkenton was tough as hell, smart as hell.
Yep.
And quick, really quick. Yes. Like you couldn't get him.
Nope.
And he could spurt away, and Purdy's got that spurt away. And then Fran Tarkenton was insanely competitive.
Yes.
And so I just think he's got he reminds me of Fran Tarkenton.
I love it. That is a very apt thing. I was thinking that about 2 weeks ago. But Larry, I'm going to come back to the one that I've used time and time again because it's starting to get eerie at this point. Last year, I wrote a column saying that Brock Purdy looks like the second coming of Russell Wilson. And I'm not talking about whatever this Russell Wilson is. I'm talking about like late stage Legion of Boom and then post Legion of Boom, Russell Wilson. And we're talking crappy offensive line, making plays out of nothing, eminently entertaining, extremely stressful at times. I mean, this thing is starting to get a little bit uncanny. Now, I will say there is a difference in that nobody threw a better deep ball than Russ. And it was almost antithetical to how he looked. And all you're just like, that guy should just be kind of doing the Drew Brees thing. And he's like, no, we're bombing it deep, baby. I'm going to drop this thing into Tyler Lockett 60 yards down the field. And damned if he didn't do it every time. A little bit different with Brock. He's pushing it more to the 15 to 25 range. He's still got a decent deep ball, but that's just not the 49ers offensive game. But the way that he, as you noted earlier, stays alive in the pocket, even though I'm seeing offensive linemen completely turned around and blocking with their ass. I'm seeing them standing around. A lot of standing around for offensive linemen on the 49ers this year. I'm seeing them on their ass, and I'm seeing them flail as they cannot get hands on anybody. Their offensive line is atrocious right now, and yet Brock Purdy's back there just making it happen anyway, doing it anyway, and it's very Russ Wilson. And the sad part for 49ers fans is if the spirit has embodied Brock Purdy, if that Seahawks energy has fully infiltrated number 13, they just added a 1 to it, the unlucky 13 number. That means that the 49ers, much like the Seattle Seahawks during Russell Wilson's tenure, will never play another normal game. Not one. And I'm starting to think, given the way they've played the last couple of weeks, that's what's happened.
Well, I love the Russell Wilson. And if in a way, if you really think about it, since Russell Wilson left Seattle and Brock Purdy came to the 49ers.
Yeah, it was like a Freaky Friday
situation. He's basically got the same ownage on Seattle that Russell had on the Niners.
That's right.
And he does a lot of the same things. If you think about a lot of those Seattle Niner games where Seattle beat the Niners, how did they finish off the Niners? It was usually Russell getting first downs with this and sliding and running
it out over the
line. Extending.
Oh, who does it better than Brock these days?
And Purdy
Brock
did
is the
that
best
in
at
Seattle.
Extending the ball.
And he did that one on the sideline where he slid and he kind of extended the ball.
Yeah.
And it's just like, Russell Wilson. That's a great call. That's a great call. Of course, I would also go. There's a couple other guys. Russell Wilson for sure. A lot of people would say Drew Brees. I know Willie Snead used to say he reminds him of Drew Brees, and he played with Drew Brees. So I always put a lot of credibility into that one. But Brent Jones told us that he sees some Montana in Purdy, and you know what? I do too, because Montana was another guy who was really hard to sack and very, very quick, and just a very live for football, insanely competitive, really, really, really smart, great, not just a good or decent processor, an elite processor. And that's what we're looking at. And it's hard to see. I mean, we can't see inside somebody's brain. We need a certain number of games.
Play calls, right?
Yeah, and we need a certain number of games of success to see, this guy can do it. And it's like Brock Purdy can do it with lesser weapons even, because he's got the right processing. So he processes well. He's accurate as hell, even though the ball that he throws does not look impressive by any stretch. But Joe's ball wasn't that impressive, but then sometimes Joe's ball was, and sometimes Brock's throws down the field are. So it's kind of a weird thing. And then the toughness. It's like, how do you measure toughness? And, Joe Montana was super tough. Brock Purdy's very, very tough. So Brent Jones said who played with Joe Montana, said Brock reminds him of Joe Montana. So I'll take that right there.
I have one more to throw your way. Shorter Kurt Warner. Because it's all processing, right? Knows where the ball's got to go, offensive coordinator on the field. I think Kurt Warner, at least early, we're talking, greatest show on turf Rams, moved around a lot better than people remember. I think people remember once he got drilled into that turf enough times that, hey, he wasn't moving around all that much, but knows exactly what he was looking at, delivered very pretty balls. He could spin it now. And the command of everything. When I watch Brock at his
Did you say
best,
pretty balls?
Yeah, he does. He's very pretty balls. Very smooth.
Make sure.
Glisten. They glisten in the air of the Edward Jones Dome.
Something tells me that we're going to turn that into a promo. I don't know.
Wonderful. Well, we're going to get some more ads now. I've seen Twitter these days. So it's not perfect. It's not Wilson. It's not Tarkington, which is a great one. And, Joe, I don't know if I want to go down the line of blaspheming here, but I understand what you're saying and I agree with it. But there's something about when Kurt Warner was just cooking. There was something that felt so reassuring. Not that I gave a damn about the Rams at that era or anything, but it just felt like there was a full comprehension, a full understanding that he was operating on a higher platform mentally than anybody else, and it wasn't this forced thing. There was kind of a flow state thing. And there have been moments, it is not a frequent thing, but there have been moments when I've seen that with Brock, and that's a sight to behold. And it's been very reminiscent of a shorter, maybe a stumpier Kurt Warner, which Kurt Warner is one hell of a quarterback, man. He's one of the all-time greats, in the Hall of Fame, all that stuff, but I don't know. Anything to that?
I mean, I think some of the throwing motion looks kind of similar.
Okay.
Kurt Warner just
a nice way of saying no.
Well, Kurt Warner just didn't have the mobility.
No.
And has a significantly different physical stature.
Right. I'm with you.
And
it's more of a vibes. It's more of a vibes thing. But
I'll say this. I mean, they both came out of nowhere. They have that, and they both didn't have like a, hey, you know what? They're getting better. No, they hit the ground. They were great, immediately.
That's right.
Right? I mean, I don't remember a Kurt Warner ramp up. Do you? I remember an explosive
Trent Green
offense
hit his head,
and
here you go.
Yeah, and then away they went.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, there is something really unique too when a guy never isn't good.
Never sucks. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
I mean,
no
think
Jordan
about it.
Love ramp up period.
You're watching Trevor Lawrence right now. He's struggling. He's really struggling. And he's not alone. There's other guys that are struggling. I mean, Anthony Richardson's really, really, really
that
struggling.
One makes a lot of sense. He's barely played any football, but I mean, I think situation has a lot to do with it. But to your point, what was the other than if you were watching this show, and listening to me and Larry talk about him, like everyone's comments on Caleb Williams coming in is no one's coming into a better situation. His situation's so good they can hit the ground running. There's no question Kurt Warner shows up on the 99 Rams. Pretty good situation. You got Isaac Bruce, Torrey Holt, here's Marshall Faulk. Like, you're doing okay. Didn't they win the Super Bowl that year? Like, it wasn't a problem. Brock Purdy shows up. Yeah, he might have been the third string. They're in the NFC Championship game in the flash of an eye because he comes into a pretty plum gig. I know that it was a little less, of course, with the Chicago Bears. They would have drafted 9th, but and they did. But man, like, people were talking, great situation, better than what Trevor Lawrence had with the Jaguars, better than Richardson and the Colts. It's not like they were expected to be a Super Bowl contender or anything this year. They were just sort of this dark horse to make the playoffs. Situation matters a lot, but it is telling. It's still telling because there have been guys who have shown up in great situations and still sucked or didn't have everything they needed. So I think it's one of those really cosmic occurrences when you have the right player at the right time for the right team, and you should not scoff or even demean the accomplishments of somebody who does show up as the right player at the right time for the right team. And that's the case with Brock Purdy. And enjoy the obscene amount of luck that's led us all to this moment where we get to watch it. Not to say that you can't be critical of him or anything, but whew.
By the way, I'm putting Kev's tweet out there. He compared Brock Purdy against the Vikings to CJ Stroud against the Vikings. I'll tell you, one of the things I hate is I hate people who do this. Would you rather have a guy who had three, and they, blah, 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 some stats, or would you rather have this guy? Oh, well, you know what? You'd rather have, Baker Mayfield than Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah. I would love to be in a market where I could choose between two really good quarterbacks at any time. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Anyway, has ruined our brains.
Okay, so this is Purdy in week 2 against the Vikings, and compared to Stroud in week 2 against the Vikings. And as you can see, Purdy has thrown for over 100 more yards with a much better completion percentage, with a much higher quarterback rating, and with a much higher completion percentage over expectation, which is a great stat because it really it factors in the teams that you're playing against.
Can I note something about completion percentage over expectation? I mean,
please do.
That is, Brock has been fitting the ball into very tight windows, and that is something that should be lauded, save for the fact that when you then watch the game on Monday with the full perspective of the field, he's also just not looking at his X receiver like ever. And that makes sense, given that he had no reason to look at his X receiver for an entire month in training camp because Brandon Ayuk wasn't there. So they were running out, Conley and Pearsall and Cowing at X receiver. They had Robbie Chosen playing the X receiver, but it's pretty clear that that's just not where his progressions lead him anymore. Whereas I thought this would be the year, if all things had aligned correctly, that the X receiver, which at least to my knowledge in prior iterations of the Shanahan offense has been the first and primary read on most plays, not the case in San Francisco to date. I thought they would go back to that a little bit more. So completion percentage over expectation only really tells me that he can really zip it. It can give an indication of if you then know somebody else is more open and not knowing the full scale of what the progression should be and what Purdy is looking at, it can say that you're forcing things in there, and that isn't necessarily a great trait. Especially in that Vikings game where, at least for the first half, where I was being pretty diligent on tracking and then kind of lost the plot, there were a lot of plays where Ayuk had created some pretty serious separation and Purdy just had already come off of him. And that's a little bit on Ayuk for not being as fast in and out of his breaks. That's unquestioned at this point. Anyone can see that. But it's also, Brock not prioritizing the X receiver for reasons that are totally understandable at this juncture in the campaign. So just wanted to say that about CPOE because it is a good stat. I like the stat. We're seeing the stat. It aligns with the eye test, but I do think it kind of cuts both ways sometimes.
Purdy or Stroud?
I mean, that's a great. I'll take Purdy because with Stroud, goddamn, can Stroud spin it? He spins it so pretty. But there is, I think Purdy has a pretty stable place right now. So I'm going to take the stability over the possibility of volatility here. There is a very real chance that CJ Stroud gets found out and the book gets out on him. I couldn't tell you what that is. I'm not a smart enough defensive person, but there's certainly some cracks that have shown up in the last couple of weeks, and certainly the Vikings, much like they did with Purdy, it's not like Purdy looked good in that game, even if the stats say a certain thing. That chaos defense, 6 on the line, taking away outside zone, sort of thing that Flores likes to do, that Mike McDonald likes to do. We'll see if Jeremiah likes to do. That creates real problems against a Kubiakian system, particularly one that is predicated on tight splits with receivers, because even if you bust coverage, if you're Minnesota, just to use them specifically, even if you bust coverage, when you have tight splits, there's not enough separation for where you can find those windows. You have opportunities as a defense to cover it up, or they're just getting home fast enough that no one ever sees it. So doesn't surprise me in the least bit. And I should have, hindsight being 2020, I should have seen it better, that Minnesota had just as much success against a Bobby Slowick offense as they did against Purdy. And I think that the stats are indicative in this case that I think Stroud's ceiling is higher, but his floor is lower. And I think that Purdy's ceiling and floor are about the same thing. That's about like the 5th or 6th best quarterback in the NFL right now. And I'll take that every day, all day.
I think Stroud and Purdy would both agree that Purdy's better than Stroud right now. I've heard Stroud discuss Purdy, and you can tell he speaks of him in reverence. Purdy right now is better, and but Stroud, I do agree, has more upside, and it's incredibly impressive what Stroud's doing at an early stage. All right, let's get through some of these topics. CMC, there's talk that he's going to be out until week 12 or week 13. Okay. There are people debating the credibility of the story, which is really, really surprising. But Dave Lombardi is kind of questioning the validity of the story. The story was put out there by Eric Branch, so now we're questioning each other's validity here. But orthobiologics specialist Kenton Field, I think his name is. Okay. Yeah, Kenton Field. He's the NHL medical director, believes that CMC is likely to miss a couple of months. And of course, this is on the heels of his trip to Germany.
Yes,
for Achilles tendonitis.
As we all do, Larry. Anytime my Achilles is flaring,
you're always
I go back to the homeland.
But that means he could be out to week 12 or week 13. My whole take on this is like, you know what? Once I heard Achilles, I just think, if you're going to try to play with Achilles, an Achilles injury, I think we don't. Without knowing the specifics of his situation and where his Achilles is exactly, I would say the general, if you ask me, a guy's got an Achilles injury and he's probably going to rupture it at some point and he's going to play, some games and he's on your team. He's a great player. And so what do you think? When do you want to use him? How do you want to use him? What risk do you want to take? When do you want to take it? I mean, in a lot of ways, it's really, really basic. It's like, how do you want to play your hand of cards? But it's also a great sports talk radio topic because there's lots of different arguments for lots of different variables. Yeah. I would say this, and this
all
has
of them
been
unfounded and uneducated.
Well, I'm just saying we don't know about the extent of the injury, but there's enough.
I'll say this. I think we have a pretty good hint. He has a calf injury and Achilles tendonitis. Those two things, they flip and connect to each other.
Yeah, but these things, but we don't know how, like if it was a car, we don't know how long it's going to go till it overheats. We don't know how long he can play.
I don't think
a year and a half. Can he play 5 years? If you can play 5 years, guess what? I don't think we're that concerned because I think the Niners would take the next 5 years. But the reality is he probably can't play 5 years. He probably can't even play a year. I would say, if you ask me what's the average, I would say the best that they could hope for would be like 4 or 5 games. That's what I think. Maybe 6. Yeah. If the season's cut in thirds, I wouldn't play him in the first third. I wouldn't play him in the second third. I would try to play him in the final stretch of the year. I'd hold off as long as I could, but I'd try to play him in the playoffs. And
if try to win the Super Bowl today, he'd play. He's very adamant about that, but they don't.
Yeah, and but I'm just saying that's when I would play him. I would play him.
Makes sense.
Right at the end, because my guess he's got 4 or 5 weeks. Give me your takeaway from this latest report? The validity, all of it. Is it valid? Is it not? What do you think?
All of it screams authentic to me for whatever that's worth. And not my first foray, not the Bay Area's first foray with an injury of almost this exact specificity when we're talking about calf leading to Achilles. Now, in this one, they're just being overt in saying that there's something going on with the Achilles too, which tells you how bad of a calf strain it was. This is Kevin Durant written all over it. It's the same flipping thing. And we're going to come back. I'm sure people have heard me say this before. There's really nothing else to say than you don't know when you're talking about soft tissue, when we're talking about the big calf. We don't know if that thing can handle the workload until you are on an actual football field and having to run for your life. You can think we're good to go, everything's A-okay, and then you get out there and the fight or flight kicks in because it is scary being on a football field when these men are running at you as fast as they do, looking to put pain through you. Your muscles are going to act a little bit differently. My muscles act differently with just proximity. So what would it be like if I was in pads? I can only imagine. You cannot possibly test it to a full capability before you get on the field. And the issue that Christian McCaffrey has here is that if that calf muscle can't do it, the calf muscle is not going to be the thing that gives out. It's the Achilles tendon that's going to give out. And that's exactly what happened to Kevin Durant. He had a calf thing, a calf thing, a calf thing. I can't get the calf right. I can't get the calf right. And eventually he just said, you know what? The calf is the calf, and I got to just go out there and play. And he stepped on it once after just putting up mad numbers in Toronto, and he stepped the wrong way once, and it wasn't the calf that went out. It was the Achilles that went out. And Christian McCaffrey's got to be looking at this, and he's got to know the history, and he's got to, I'm sure he's been told stories like that a million times over, and he's got to be scared shitless. Because if his Achilles goes, the Christian McCaffrey that we know is done. There's no coming back at his age with his miles to being Christian McCaffrey, NFL Offensive Player of the Year, after you tear your Achilles. So that's why he's going to Germany. He might even still be in Germany. That's why he's getting some pretty advanced blood work done and injected into his calf and his Achilles right now so that he can get some stem cell growth to get that thing healed up to whatever degree. This is the reason why the 49ers can't commit to him coming back anytime soon. And while we're here having a conversation about, well, do you just use him? Because it's a ticking time bomb and no one's going to know what the clock says on the bomb until you get on the field. And that's when the clock starts. And it could be 10 seconds or it could be 10 years. No one knows. And that's got to be so scary. It's got to be just petrifying for Christian McCaffrey. I feel for him. It's got to be petrifying for the 49ers who just gave this guy all this money, despite, I don't know, all bits of logic given the running back position and how you have to structure a football team in the year 2024 and beyond. It's got to be petrifying for anybody who's currently on the San Francisco 49ers because you built the entire plane out of Christian McCaffrey and now you never had him. And now now Debo's. Anything that happens from this point on is adding insult to injury, literally. So this was always going to be something that was just going to be a consistent nag on the season. Even if he were to play, it would be a constant, hey, you feeling okay? Everything okay? Is this thing going to go? It was just going to be defined from the jump as the Christian McCaffrey calf season. The second that he didn't play in week 1, I see no reason to believe that that's going to change. And as for when do you play him? You play him whenever he says he's ready to go. Because you just have no idea if the bomb is going to go off instantaneously, weeks from now, years from now, or ever. You just have no idea until he gets on the field. So if he's willing to take the risk, you roll the dice. That's all you can do at this point.
And that's the injury on that front. The other injury, today was a bad day. Obviously there's no Javon Hargrave. So what does that mean? Yeah. That means that the other guys have to step up. Kevin Givens, Jordan Elliott. Oh, wait a second. Jordan Elliott this afternoon reportedly injured his foot during the practice. Now, I didn't see it, but he was carted off the field. So obviously that suggests that it was very, very serious. He was listed as limited. Because
when you practice a little bit and then you get taken out of practice, you are technically limited in practice.
Yeah. We'll find out more tomorrow from Shanahan. They signed him as a backup off defensive tackle this offseason. He's played 57 defensive snaps. He's recorded 2 tackles.
He's been fine. That's a generous interpretation on my end, but I had very low expectations. So fine is about as good as I'm willing to go right now.
What do you think, though, as far as is this? I mean, then I wouldn't even mention. So that happened, and then also Curtis Robinson went down in a special teams drill, and with a knee injury, and he was carted off.
That's bad.
So are we starting to get into a situation where the injuries are not just kind of a bummer, but they're an overarching theme / excuse for why this season's going down the tubes? I mean, is the season going down the tubes? Have they reached the injury, tilting point where it's just too much to overcome? Where are you on the Niner injury front, especially if they lose Elliott and, if they wind up losing Robinson and Elliott?
Yeah, I mean, the Curtis Robinson thing doesn't bother me. I apologize to Curtis Robinson and anybody associated with any Stanford alums. Sorry, man, it just doesn't do anything for me. I feel bad. I legitimately feel bad about that. It's a very callous thing to say, but Curtis Robinson getting injured doesn't move the line. I'll say this. I'm a Mizzou alum, so I'm supposed to be rah-rah about Jordan Elliott. I'm not, never have been, not my cup of tea. But Nick Bosa said something interesting on Wednesday, which is that Elliott provides, at least in theory, and perhaps nothing more than theory given the injury news today, he provides a different look up front. And when you brought in Collins and Hargrave, both of those guys are one gap splitters. Collins has a bit more ability in hand-to-hand combat than Hargrave, who's all about the explosion off the line, all about just bursting into the backfield. And Elliott, because he's so legitimately massive, because he's a bigger dude, I don't like his hand skills. I don't like his off the ball. But he's bigger and he can just hold on to some double teams more because he's massive. And that could have been a huge boon for the 49ers run defense, which is just getting gassed. And this is not new. This is something that's been happening for a couple years now. And I know the Niners love to present that no one's run 100+ yards on us and it's 17 straight games. That's because they didn't need to, because they were getting 6 yards a clip no matter what. They didn't need the 100 yards from one running back. They had two guys going for 85. They could split up the workload because both guys were able to eat. And it is as simple as the 49ers defensive front hasn't adjusted one iota since 2017. The scheme is the exact flippin' same. And we saw what the 49ers were able to do to the Jets in week 1, who run the same bullshit wide 9 one gap scheme and have no variations on it.
Not a fan.
No, I just
not a fan of the scheme.
I would like some variety in the scheme. It's one thing when Robert Saleh for years is we're a cover 3 team, we're a cover 3 team, we're a cover 3 team. Well, how did Robert Saleh get the head coaching job at the Jets? He started playing cover 2. He started keeping 2 safeties high and playing quarters and cover 2 and some cover 6. He actually mixed up his defense because, I don't know, playing the same flipping defense every set, unless you're the goddamn Seattle Seahawks circa 2012, it ain't going to work. These guys are really good at calling plays. And if you show them the same look every week, week in and week out, it's going to take them about 45 minutes on a Sunday evening after their game to figure out exactly what to dial up. They'll have the menu already done, and they're going to really drill those plays in. So you have to mix it up a little bit. You have to, I'm not saying even disguise coverages. You just have to have other things that you can do so that they don't know exactly what you're doing, because you're going to get got every time. Chris Kasarik, great guy, does develop pretty well. He finds the right guys for the scheme. They don't stunt. They don't do games. They don't do anything other than one gap and go. And if they want to get fancy with it, they go 2 guys wide 9. And so what happens? You run jet, or you run a duo block, or you run and you just wash out, whether it's Javon Kinlaw or Javon Hargrave or Jordan Elliott, as we've seen, but like they just wash out these dudes because to run inside zone, all you need is one double team, and these guys are screwed because they can't hold up because their entire game is predicated on getting pass blocks. They're not getting past two dudes coming at them at the same angle. So it's very frustrating to watch because there's just nothing dynamic happening, and any offensive line coach worth his salary knows how to attack it. And we've seen that for the last 2 weeks. We're sure as shit going to see it on Sunday. And they're in a real pickle here because as much as I like Givens,
because they don't have the horses. I mean, we're at a point where it's time to start looking around. I mean, Evan Anderson, they brought in Shaquille Brown. They have Evan Anderson. Those guys are really, really raw. I mean, Anderson is. They just brought up T.Y. McGill. They're going to activate McGill, but he's a one gap penetrator and he can do some things for a few weeks. But they don't really have
the issue.
They've lost a very strong player
when you build your entire roster, and this is the right thing to do. But when you make sure that everybody on that line is built for that specific scheme, but that scheme is getting gashed. It's not just the players; it's the scheme that's getting gashed. Like, are you?
I never watch Prawn. I'm not a big fan of Prawn.
Prawn, the former Disney film with the motorbikes.
That says Larry is watching Prawn while Dieter is talking.
Butthead was watching Prawn while typing in that comment. He only had one hand. He could only get to the hour.
Yeah, see, that's what happens when you watch too much Prawn.
Well,
hold the thought. The live stream is sponsored by Better, the official daily fantasy sponsor of the Krug Show. Use Better to make daily fantasy lineups, win real money. We've actually done it and won real money. We hit a 4-team prop or 4-player prop at the end of the preseason. Download the app below. Make sure you use the promo code Niners to get your first deposit matched up to $200. All right, before we go back and talk more about the Niners and their endless list of injuries and issues and complain more, let's take a look at this weekend's action. That was the tease, Kev. Let's take a look at this weekend's action.
Hi, Kev. Or not.
Let's take a look.
Larry, I'm happy to keep bitching about the wide nine. I think
I had to stop. I couldn't handle any more Dieter bitching about wide nine. I was losing. I felt like there were people still joining the audience, joining at that point, but it wasn't like we were losing people. But I felt it was slipping a little bit.
Anytime you get into duo block talk, I mean that's how you bring them in.
Seriously, a combo on.
Jordan Elliott. You're right that they don't have the horses, but they also made sure that the stable is entirely filled with horses that can only run one race. And now they need some variety. Like they need a little something. And in a weird way, Elliott was going to provide that on just sheer mass. And now he's not around. I really shudder to think what the Patriots can do to him because they don't have anything else they can do but run it. What the fuck's Kyler Murray going to do to him or James Conner?
Ramondre Stevenson is a bull. I mean, I'm going to talk about the Patriots in a minute here. Yeah. Jim Everett the Great says Larry Legend Krueger predicted Rams sweep the 49ers. I did. Wow. And we'll see if it happens. I was a guess. Michael Pig in a Pickle. There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Kev, are we going to take a look at the Better?
Kev was watching Prawn, so he has to get it off his phone here.
I mean... I thought we were going to go to the Better right here. Thought we were going to take a look.
Larry doesn't get paid unless we look at Better.
Okay, so
you want to what do you got?
Well, let's see. He needs a second.
Yeah, don't we all?
All right. So
let's second defensive tackle.
Let's
Am I off on any of this, Larry? Am I off about the wide nine and the straightforwardness of it all?
You are off. I mean, here's the thing. It's not about the scheme. It's not about this. It's a defensive line deal. Defensive line's not about the scheme. Defensive line is about the guys. It's about, do you have the guys? You can run any scheme you want. It's literally about the horses. Do you have the horses? And that's the problem. They don't have the horses. They used to have literally 2 starting caliber lines where like guys like a Menahue and Ebukam were like their backup guys.
That's right.
Now, if they had a Samson Ebukam or an Menahue, those guys would start. Now you've got
60
Beal.
snaps a game. Yeah.
You've got Beal. I mean, I love Sam Ekwonu, but Sam
Ekwonu was the second best defensive end in the Rams game.
He's playing well. I mean, Sam is playing well. But I'm just saying, it's like they don't have that depth there.
It's a problem that we're talking about Sam Ekwonu.
Yeah,
it's a problem.
I mean, he's playing well, but I mean, their lack of depth along the defensive line is very, very concerning. The other one today that I couldn't believe is they're not willing to. I mean,
surrender.
Right, let's do this. We're doing 2 things at once. All right, let's do this. This live stream is sponsored by Better, the official daily fantasy sponsor of the Krug Show. Use Better to make daily fantasy lineups and win real money. Download the app below. Make sure you use the promo code Niners to get your first deposit matched up to $200. All right, we are ready.
Cool.
We are ready. Let's go to Jacoby Brissett.
Let's.
I am ready to not just wager. I am ready to win. All right.
It's an important part of wagering.
I like more than 6.5 on longest rush.
Wow.
For Jacoby Brissett. I've watched games. I've watched all the games.
Okay.
It's not about, this is one of the best running quarterbacks in the NFL that doesn't run fast. Yes. This guy knows exactly when to run. And if you ever get out of your lanes, he will absolutely take whatever yardage you give him and go to the next play. He understands that putting the ball in the air, it comes with risk. Mm-hmm. He understands that handing the ball to running backs, they could potentially fumble.
That's right.
So if you give him a run lane and he can keep it in his hands and run diagonally to the sidelines and pick up anything between 5 and 20 yards, he's going to take it. I've seen him do it. He runs so smart. He knows when to run. That combined with, you just said the Niners need more movement up front, and you're right. But movement up front means that likely you're going to give this guy a lane. So I'm going to say
he'll get a lane whether they move up front or not.
Right. But that longest run, I mean, he is a lock. Take it. He's the lock. So he's longest run. All right. What do you got? Okay. You got another one?
Give me Pop Douglas.
Demario Douglas, who was basically he was Malik Willis's receiver at Liberty back in the day.
Yeah.
Okay, so 33.5 receiving, or 30. Yeah, is that 33? 33.5 receiving yards. 18. Is it 16.5?
That's 16.5 on the longest catch. I just don't
love the receiving yards over in that.
I don't see a world in which Pop Douglas isn't the main focus of the passing offense. They tried not to make that the case the first week. The last 2 weeks, they're like, just get the goddamn ball in our best offensive players' hands. Take the over. I wish it was all-purpose yards because they do a lot of like handoffs and end-around stuff to him, but take what you can get, 33.5. He can get that on one play.
Yep. I love it.
How about Brandon Ayuk?
Let's go. Let's take a look at Ayuk. 62.5 receiving yards. 23.5 longest.
Christian Gonzalez is really good.
I don't like that.
I don't like it either. Get out of there. I don't
like it. I don't like it. Touching. He's not playing well.
What can we get on Campbell? Times targeted in passing game.
Yeah, no, we don't want Campbell.
And he might have 8 tackles just because he's constantly getting run at.
Let's look at the Patriots again. Let's look at Jordan Mason.
Sure.
Because I think you can run inside on these guys. I watched Cincinnati do it. 84.5. That's a high number.
That's aggressive.
It's a high.
How about a longest rush of 16.5? Oh boy.
What do you think of that? I like that.
How about, you know what?
He's good. Wait a second. I just saw a stat that I think he's like among the leaders in the league in 15 to 20 yard runs or something like that.
Yeah, but you see, now we're playing at the top. We're playing 16.5. It screams off to me because the Patriots are sound, even if they're giving it up. Like, it feels like 11, 12-yard run as opposed to the 20-something more. What I like is 19.5 rushing attempts over.
Ooh, over
right?
20 carries.
Give him 20. Like, I feel like he has to be in the 20s. I saw nothing from Guerrero that makes me think that the Niners want to work him again.
Were you there today?
Game. No, I was at the A's game.
Chris Forster today, when he was asked about Guerrero, was like, "I love him. I love him." So
what's not to love?
I mean, I know.
Except for the production, because he's never.
So if he runs up his offensive lineman's backs and has no feel at all, right. Nobody loves him. But he did then say, if we can get him in space, and that's the deal. I love him in space. You love him in space. Everybody loves him in space.
Yeah.
But he's a running back, and running backs more times than not have to operate in small areas and short areas without a lot of space. And without a lot of space, I don't think this guy's worth anything. But in space, I think this guy is really unique and unlike any other player they have. And I kind of agree with Chris in that when I watch Guerrero, I'm right in that there's no feel. I mean, zero feel.
100%.
And I'm not backing off that one iota.
Nor should you, because it's the correct statement.
But the upside is still vast because he's so explosive.
He's Raheem Mostert 2.0, except Raheem doesn't.
Raheem Mostert was pretty heavy, actually.
Raheem wasn't as big as Guerrero. There are two guys in the history of the NFL to run as fast as Guerrero at 225 pounds or more.
Right.
One of them is Guerrero. Who's the other one?
DK Metcalf? I don't know.
That's right. DK Metcalf.
What? No.
Yes. Yeah. There's two players in the history of the NFL to run as fast as Guerrero at the combine at Guerrero's weight or higher. And the only other one is the freak of all freaks, DK Metcalf. I'd like him too. I'd like him too. On just sheer possibilities and spec. If you can teach that guy a little bit of football.
This is the NFL. I mean, DK Metcalf had a worse 3-cone drill than Tom Brady, but he's still one of the dominant forces in the game because he's straight line fast and so big, so strong. And Guerrero doesn't have running back instincts, but I'm not saying he's a bust. Like people hear me say that, but Krug, you've been bitching, you've been hating on Guerrero. No, moron. I'm not hating on Guerrero.
Hey, leave the moron family out of this.
I'm not hating on Guerrero. I'm just saying he's got no running back instincts. But guess what? There's other positions and there's other things you can do besides running between the tackles. He's got an ability, if you can get him in space, especially without Christian McCaffrey. You need big play, big chunk yardage plays. You need explosiveness. Guerrero, I think it might be the solution to how do they get through the season without McCaffrey. If I was Chris, I'd talk him up too. I want to see Guerrero in space, isolated, getting the ball 4 or 5 times a game. That's what I want to see.
I'm with you. If you can teach that kid to run outside zone, it's game over. But I think they thought they had a year to do that, and guess what? They did. Because
I'm gonna say 9.5 receiving yards over Jordan Mason.
Okay, I like the over on the attempts, but that's me.
I can go with both. Let's go with both.
We're going all in on Mason. Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's going to get the ball a lot. I think they're going to throw it to him. I think they're going to hand it to him. I could see
curiosity, what's Jawan Jennings' numbers look like after one of the great games of all time?
47.5 receiving yards. We're going over on that.
I think that's fair. I think he's the second.
That's just like that screams that Better's estimator doesn't believe in JJ.
Or they think that Deebo Samuel's about to play, which he was limited in practice today.
But even if JJ's so reliable, that we're going over on that. All right, let's see what we got.
We're living dangerous.
So we got Brissett over 6.5 yards longest run. Love that. Demario Douglas over 33.5 receiving yards. That's done. That's absolutely going. 19.5 rush attempts on Mason. It's a little bit of a guess. on on just usage, because the Niners are so
they got to have it.
They're conservative on their usage, but you know what? This is the kind of game where I could see that.
Totally.
And then Jennings, 47.5 receiving yards. I mean, that's no question. Do we want one more? I thought we had a Purdy one in there.
No, we didn't even look at Purdy.
Let's go Purdy real quick.
All right, let's talk.
Let's take one more
Brock.
look at.
See what better.
See what the
Brock cornfields mazed.
275.5 passing.
That's rich.
1.5 passing touchdowns.
That's hot.
7.5 rushing yards. I like that.
Yeah, that's we're all in on scrambling quarterbacks.
Well, because you know why? Because the rushing yards is you know.
Well, Larry,
scramble is a rush.
Okay,
right?
So Larry, do you want 7.5 rushing yards? Because they might lose. We saw this happen with Patrick Mahomes this week. You lose them on the kneel downs. You lose.
I'm not worried about that. I think Purdy's going to have like
you got a 6.5 longest rush. Let me see if I got this right. Right there. Yeah. That feels like a safer play. But that's just me.
I kind of like that one. Let's go that one. Let's go 6.5 longest rush.
Which is the same as the Jacoby Brissett one.
Yeah. There we go. All right, now let's wager.
I say you put the mortgage on it, Larry.
We're putting everything on it. We're going to put it all on it.
Does it take Volvo station wagons? Because I am willing to bet one.
40? 40 to 1. No, 10? What do we got here? Let's go 20. We go 20? I think Kevin went 10. Oh, wait a second. Failed to submit entry. Oh, try again.
It's too good. They know they're about to lose their money.
Exactly. We say no.
Yeah.
We say no.
It's like when you get banned from a book for being too good.
There we go.
Well, Larry, this has gone great.
Well, so far we're getting tonight. Better. There we go. We're trying. Oh, there we go. Now we're gonna bet 20, right? No, 10. We're going
Keep
10
saying
again.
10. I feel like Kevin's setting us up here. He knows
Kev's hoarding all the money.
Yeah.
He doesn't want us to win.
He actually bet that 15 times now, and he has a fake load screen. It's like Ocean's 11.
By the way, this live stream sponsored by Better, the official daily fantasy sponsor of the Krug Show. Use Better to make daily fantasy lineups and win real money. Download the app below. Make sure you use the promo code Niners, NINERS, to get your first deposit matched up to $200. And thanks to Better for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. And by the way, if you sign up, you get a chance to win a Niner jersey, not just a Brock Purdy jersey. It could be a Niner jersey, but it will be in your size and your choice. Dealer's choice.
Devondre Campbell.
If you won a Niner jersey, you're going 59 Devondre Campbell?
Oh, of course. He's my favorite. Or Leonard Floyd, 56.
You were right about Leonard Floyd. Look how Dieter brought that up very slyly.
I was right about Campbell, too.
You were.
I'm wrong about a good many things, but not about defensive ends and linebackers.
I would go Greenlaw. If I was getting a jersey, I'd go a Greenlaw. Wow. I'd go 57.
I would not wear. Larry, I got to be honest here. At a certain point, it's weird to wear. I think I figured it out.
Don't go with it's weird to wear a man's jersey, because
then
you're insulting all these fans.
No. It's weird
wear
to wear
these guys' jerseys, and then we all know. Come on, there's a time and place. I mean, I'm Catholic. I go to church. Occasionally, somebody walks into church with a jersey. I always think to myself, you know what? Wrong time, wrong place. Take your jersey off at church.
I'm not arguing
but
about
you know
that.
what?
I'm saying,
other than that, I don't have any rules about jerseys. Gary used to say you can't be 40, you can't be this, you can't be that. Take the jersey off. I would say rock whatever the hell you want to rock at whatever age you want to rock it.
Okay. I don't think that you should be wearing the jersey of someone who's younger than you. So if you have a jersey, if you have a Joe Montana jersey or Steve Young jersey or something, and that person is older than you, or at least in your age range, that makes sense, right? Because that jersey would have been procured, at least emotionally, at an age when wearing a jersey feels appropriate. So I have no problem with that. It is a little weird seeing 50-year-old men wearing the jerseys of a 20-something-year-old. I think it's a little weird, especially in this day of age where there's a fucking logo on everything.
But they're fans of the team, and
that's great. You can wear a million different quarter zips or polo shirts or t-shirts. Where is
I'm not a jersey guy. In fact, I don't know that I've ever worn a jersey more than once or twice. Like I did an ad. I did some commercials for like a company that sends you jerseys and that kind of thing. And they sent me some Dwight Clark jerseys. I wore those.
Well, Dwight Clark was older than you, so that was fine.
Yeah. And I do understand what you mean by that.
I just think that listen, you all can do whatever you want. But this is my suggestion.
Those rules are, come on. That's too much. That's
a little weird.
That's a little weird. That's a little controlling.
Well, we're doing thought policing. We might as well get in some actual progressive thoughts here.
Okay, so if we're gonna do that, if we're gonna get into some, if we're just taking this stream off the rails, are there any other Niner topics you want to get into?
The offensive line, Larry, is not good.
McKivitz has been the lowest graded guy. You got no other tackle. What are you going to do? What are you going to do?
I mean, I'd be interested to see if Jalen Moore can do it. I would.
Instead of Colton?
Yes. You do have another tackle.
See, I'm not there yet. I'm not saying I can't get there, but I'm not there yet.
Okay. Well, I mean, here's the deal, because it's reflecting on Pooney too. McKivitz's inability to get even hands on people when they speed rush, and is so easily pushed out of the way when he does try to get his hands up because they're typically late. It's now putting Pooney in a spot as well, to where if that guy comes inside, Pooney is having to do two things at one time. He's not ready for it.
I know. He's not ready for it. I don't know how good Jalen Moore is, and I know McKivitz won't whiz down his leg. McKivitz has played in a lot more big games. I don't know. I mean, I don't think the upside potential was there. If Jalen Moore were enormous, strong, incredible, if he had traits that were in any way, it was a trade-off, right? Yeah, this guy's bigger, stronger, and longer, and but he's not. He's just like they're basically both kind of undersized guys. I don't see any advantage. I'll go with McKivitz. Let me ask you this though: beyond if we grow the discontent beyond tackle,
okay,
I'm giving you one roster move, that you can make going into week 4. What's your roster move? You can take what they did in week 3, and you can take one guy and put him in, not including the Hargrave maneuver, because obviously he's not coming back, so they have to fill that one. But beyond Hargrave, give me one guy. One move you want to see.
It's tough because the right answer.
Burford played right tackle today, by the way. Yes.
I'd like to see it. The correct answer, which makes me look smart, isn't viable right now, which is play D Winters instead of Devondre Campbell. And at least
why is that not viable?
Because Winters is injured.
He played today. He practiced today.
Didn't he leave practice with the injury?
No.
Okay, I have that info.
Robinson was started off.
Okay, well, let's go with that. I don't think D Winters is good. He's just sort of
he's way faster.
He's a Temu or AliExpress Dre Greenlaw. Plays the same way. Doesn't form tackle. Just kind of flying around. He's a chaos agent. I'd rather have that than someone who's slow, albeit cerebral, but just slow. Because Sean McVay just had a field day with 59. And it was so obvious. It was so obvious that it was going to happen after week 1. And Kevin O'Connell just put him in the blender again and again. And then Sean McVay's like, let's not even pretend we're not doing this. We're going to run Kyron Williams on a Texas route out of the backfield right at 5'9". We're going to isolate him on our protections. We're going to, when we really need a big play, motion out our tight end, forcing Campbell to go out and have to guard him one-on-one, and we're just going to pick up 40 easy yards. I mean, McVay could have done it all day. He didn't want to because he has some class about him. And if Kyle had some sense about him, he'd go to Nick Sorensen or Brandon Staley or whoever the hell runs the defense and says, hey, this guy's killing us. And if I were the offensive coordinator, I'd be just destroying you 5'9". Throw in the chaos agent. Worst case scenario, we got to go back to Campbell. But that's where I would go. You give me one more, give me the Nuge. But they'll
so
go to
who do you want in for Campbell?
I want 5'3" for 5'9". I want D Winters in for Campbell.
Yeah, okay. I'm there. I like that one. I like Winters. It's funny.
I can give you a bunch of them now that I think about it. Give me Renardo Green for Yadam.
Yeah, that was what I was going with. I want Renardo Green for Yadam. Yadam's just in a trail position at all times, and Green is much more of a challenging. Green will challenge you.
What did we miss with Yadam? He looked awesome in camp.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have top level. He's these. I'll say this. Everybody for a long time talked with such loving terms about these tall corners.
Yeah.
But you know what? If you study corners really closely, the game is the receivers are so athletic that you have to prioritize athleticism over size.
Yeah,
and so that means extreme athleticism comes in different heights. Mm-hmm. So in a lot of ways, I would go for smaller guys because you get great value, because nobody wants to draft a 5'8" or a 5'9" corner. They all want the guys who are 6'1". But guess what? If you're 6'1", 6'2", and you can't, it's all about your ability to mirror an elite athlete up and down the field. And it's harder to do at 6'2". Now, the best guys who are 6'2", the Sauce Gardners, that's why those guys are going to the Hall of Fame. So if you can get a guy who's 6'3", 6'4", and he can, play man coverage and man up, that's incredible. But if you can't, then that's a problem. So I would say definitely Renardo Green. I think Renardo Green might be their best coverage guy, better than Lenore, better than Mooney. I think Renardo might be the best cover guy they got. And I think that if we don't discover that, if we don't see him out there till week 10 and he becomes the best cover guy, on the team, there's going to be a lot of hell to pay. So I say Yadam out, Renardo in.
I'm interested to see if they slide Yetur Gross-Matos inside, because that means that there's more Floyd, unless they want to go with Okwanu, which I just don't think they want to.
Yeah.
Because Beal hasn't deserved snaps. So they're in a real pickle. Picking a pickle, perhaps even when it goes inside, because we know what Givens is, and Givens has a rate of diminishing returns that's pretty low. You get 20
and it doesn't.
Snaps
none of the defensive line matters because they're all playing anyway.
I get that, but when you're talking about big downs, how do you want to go about this? Right? Yeah. Let's say you're in a 3rd and 4, and when you're playing the Patriots, that means the run is still on the table. How do you want to stack it? You're going to be in nickel. You're going to have Lenore on the inside. In the ideal world here, we got D Winters, Fred Warner behind the linebackers. You got Huff coming into the box. You have Jair Brown. It's the single free safety. If there was an alternative, I'd throw him in, but there isn't one. And then Renardo Green on the outside, Charvarius Ward, or whatever this version of Charvarius Ward is, because it doesn't look anything like the Mooney Ward I saw last year, on the outside, barely tackling, totally lost, just floating. He's just floating. It's been brutal to watch. Are you going Bosa, Collins, Yetur Gross-Matos, and Floyd? Is that what you're rolling out there? Because they're running the ball down your throat then.
Oh, no. You're going to have to mix it up, man. I mean, I don't think there's no easy solutions here. You just lost Hargrave, and it's a crusher. Yeah. All right, let's a couple things I want to get to, because I want to get to a couple topics that aren't football.
Okay.
But one last one on football I really do want to get to here.
Yeah.
And that is, I used to, when I was in the Canadian League, I worked as the quality control coach and on the defense. So I looked at opposing offenses. So I looked at, Jeff Garcia and Doug Flutie, and Anthony Calvillo and Damon Allen and all these different guys, and studied all their offensive things. And then I also did personnel and worked with Joe Woolley and Rick Mueller, and we worked on our negotiation list and tried to improve our roster. But I used to have one major project every week, and that was I worked for the defensive coordinator, and he would say, I want to report that on the eve of every game from you, that basically says how we're going to lose.
I
want you to think like our opponent, studying us, and how I want you to make your greatest argument for not just that we're going to lose, how we're going to lose.
Yeah.
So I can contemplate that as I'm going through it.
That's some real winner mindset right there. I want to think about how
and it was a hard thing to do, right? Because it's like I had to factor in like what they have done, what we do.
I know what you think
their coaches, what their coaches are going to think, what their tendency is.
Yeah.
So then you had to kind of know who the play caller was and something about his personality. And so sometimes you had to go watch him in other games to see what he likes to do in certain situations. You could look at the numbers, but you had to watch the film.
Totally.
Anyway.
I do that thought exercise every week for the Merc. How do the 49ers win? How do the 49ers lose?
So let's play that right here. How the Niners are 10-point favorites. Mm-hmm. I watched the entire first 3 games of the Patriots.
Yeah.
And after I watched it, I thought to myself, I can see how the Patriots can win.
Oh, yeah.
And so I want to hear from you, and then I'll tell you what I think. But how do the Patriots beat the Niners on Sunday as 10-point dogs on the road against a team that, thinks they're going to the Super Bowl and is incredibly hungry for a victory, a one-sided victory?
It's pretty. I mean, it's this is a lot more straightforward than most weeks because there's really one path, and that path is Ramondre Stevenson has 150 plus rushing yards, and in specifics, they run inside zone with impunity, and they go directly at the 49ers defensive tackles, and they get to the second level and they block Fred Warner, and they leave Devondre Campbell one-on-one with Stevenson, and they just take that matchup again and again and again. And when eventually the 49ers realize, okay, we have to put Huff in the box repeatedly and basically make him the weak side linebacker, and they'll do that swap, and we saw it last week against the Rams, you do exactly what the Rams did, which is now we're running outside zone. But we're going to run outside zone with 2 tight ends or with a fullback as well. And they went into a lot of 12 personnel last week. The Rams, who had run 100% of their plays from 11 personnel, they were playing 12 personnel. And they went outside zone with 12 personnel. Why? They ran it at Mooney Ward again and again and again. You just steal the game plan because you don't have as much offensive talent or the quarterback as the Rams do. And that's the beat up Rams. You just steal Sean McVay's game plan because that game plan was about attacking 2 players repeatedly. Now, you could perhaps, if you had a better quarterback, and you do have good receivers, expound upon that as to attack Jair Brown as well. And then maybe on a if you're really getting tertiary here, you could say Isaac Yiadom get in the mix too. But what you're doing is you're going defensive tackle in 59, or you're going right at 7 again and again. And until one of those 2 pairs stops you, you just keep running the football. And that's how they won their game this year. On the flip side, they got a very sound defense, even if it lacks explosion. And it's an almost impossible ask, but probably easier with this 49ers team than most because of what we talk about all the time with separation and things like that. With Ayuk getting out of his breaks a lot slower than he looked last year. And I even went back and watched last year's. I mean, it's just kind of, he looks like he's molasses. Which Juwan Jennings, who just doesn't separate, he's just a tough son of a bitch who, if you get the ball anywhere near him, he's coming down with it, as we saw last week when he mossed that poor fella. Like, you do what the Rams, you just steal the Rams game plan and you rush 3, you mix up who's coming if you want to bring a 4th or a 5th. You try to get as many people in the box as possible and then have them scatter like the Vikings did the week before that. And you trust a guy like Christian Gonzalez to hold on to his receiver for 5 seconds. And you wait until Brock Purdy gets impatient and makes a mistake. You go too high every time. You trust your linebackers. You give up some stuff on the ground. You blitz every now and again in very clear passing downs, and you trust your corners, who are very good, to stay with your guys who are just not separating at the level that they should be, whether because they couldn't really separate or because they're not the same player they once were. And you wait until Brock Purdy hands you something. If he never hands you something, you're not winning the game. If he does hand you something, hopefully for their sake, the offensive game plan has been sound enough and conservative enough in its inability to turn the ball over that you can eke out a victory. 10 points is a pretty big spread to get a full-on money line underdog win, but that would be, in this case, how you'd go about it. And I know that was both extremely simple and way too complicated and ornate. I'll also throw in, do not sleep at all on the Patriots wide receivers. I mean, they got two young guys in Polk and Baker who are just dynamite. They're really good. And then Pop Douglas is a tricky little sumbitch to bring down. I don't like their quarterback, but I guess you could do worse. I don't know how many more guys you could do worse with, but you could do worse. So that's how the 49ers lose. They just have the Rams game plan completely stolen and executed at perhaps a lower level.
I think I first of all, I think the 49ers are going to win. Why?
Agree.
Because I think, Nick Bosa is going to abuse Caden Wallace, and I think he's going to be living in the lap of Jacoby Brissett. But I will say this. If I'm the Patriots, I come out and run the heck out of Ramondre Stevenson. Yeah. And he's a bull. He's an absolute bull. And they, they've had success running it. They've got some big offensive linemen. They love to run behind the right guard, Layden Robinson. He's an absolute pancake monster. He's super strong at the point. They're going to run to the right. Their left side of their line's beat up, so they're going to run right. And I think Stevenson is really dangerous. And then Gibson out of the backfield is one of the best receiving backs in football. And Jermichael Hasty is a very good receiver as well. I think they're going to utilize those guys off screens, and they're going to, which is going to neutralize the Niner rush. I think based on what I've seen, the two receivers to worry about are Pop Douglas, who looks like, he's tiny, but he's so quick and he's so dangerous on these crossing routes. And it's like almost borderline unstoppable, really. Yeah. And then KJ Osborne, who was in Minnesota and was really part of the key part of why the Niners lost to Minnesota last year. We can talk about that, but Osborne is very much all these little rub routes and all these little 5-yard routes, sideline routes. He's really dependable inside of like a 7-8 yard box.
It's like fully actualized Ray McLeod.
Yeah, I mean this guy's got great hands. The rookies are crapshoots, but I mean Thornton can really, really run. They got two tight ends who are very, very sticky handed. I mean, Austin Hooper and Hunter Henry are really good receiving tight ends. So what I see them doing is running Stevenson, short passing game, forcing the Niners into some man coverage. And when they get into man coverage, Brissett takes off and runs. He's got great feel of when to run against man coverage. If you give him a lane, he will, he'll take it. Excuse me. But he definitely runs against man-to-man coverage, and he's a great runner in that he knows when to run, how to run. He understands how to create a run lane by moving around in the pocket. Jacoby Brissett is not a great passer, but his feel of when to run and how to run is outstanding. So that's
everything but that whole throwing the football part of quarterbacking.
Right. And he doesn't have good weapons, and they're going to struggle to pass protect, and he's going to have problems. But they're going to run the ball, and they're probably going to have success. The other way the Niners lose, Marcus Jones is a dynamic return guy, and their special team sucks. Marcus Jones is going to run one back for a touchdown in this game, probably against them.
That's a great call.
I would say that's pretty likely to happen.
Much like Kyle Shanahan, I considered special teams an afterthought here.
Kyle Duggar and Jabril Peppers are impact safeties that have they're a great combo. Why? Because they have the trio of traits. They both have size and speed and instincts, and they're really physical with great ball skills. So you're talking about probably the NFL's best safety tandem right now. Duggar is super physical. Peppers is actually probably their biggest hitter. and leader. Those guys are difference makers in the middle of the field. Yeah. And then the other thing is, Keon White in his second year has emerged as an absolute star. If you really look at Keon White, there are 5 players in the NFL that have a 90 PFF pass rush grade. And they're Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, Aiden Hutchinson, and this guy, Keon White, second year defensive end. He's 6'5", 285, but he's got bend, and he was good as a rookie, solid, 26 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 20 pressures. But this year, in 3 games, he's got 4 hits on the quarterback, 4 tackles. That was last week. I should say that was last week against the Raiders or against Rodgers and the Jets. But through 3 weeks, he's got 17 tackles, 10 solo, 3 TFLs, 4 sacks, 12 pressures. Now, the Niners do catch a break because Jaywan Bentley tore his pec and he's on IR, done for the year. And Christian Barmore is battling blood clots, and he's not going to play. But Keon White can absolutely dominate, and him and Josh Uche, the Michigan kid, play these games up front. And those 2 guys playing games, the 2 inside backers, Raekwon McMillan and Jelani Tavai, are tackling machines. And then Duggar and Peppers are elite, and Christian Gonzalez was a first-round pick. So I think if Keon White, he's a dangerous player because he's a 285-pound pass rusher.
You would never know watching him, and he stands up.
Yeah, you can never let this guy get a run at Purdy in this game, or it could be a season ender for Purdy. So you got to block Keon White. And somehow I think you got to have a run-heavy scheme because the Patriots' defensive backs are pretty good. But to me, it's like if you have not a great turnover day, I think the Niners are going to struggle to stop Stevenson. I think they're going to struggle to defend Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper in the middle of the field. With Campbell is going to continue to struggle.
Yep.
I think Douglas is going to be like, wow, look at this guy. Do they need Ayuk? This guy's way better than Ayuk. I think he'll have better numbers than Ayuk. Osborne's going to move the chains. So, I mean, take the 10. I would take the 10, and this could be a one-sided game, but even if the Patriots fall behind, I think that, between the Niners struggles to rush the passer and the weapons that they do have over there, I think they can do some quick strike. I mean, you got to remember this. Right now, teams are going up top on the Niners with success. So if the 49ers even get a lead in this game, if you're the opposition, you got to feel like you can go up top on them. So I like New England in the points, but that's how the Niners lose is the special teams gives up a touchdown and Brissett runs for a bunch of first downs and Pop Douglas makes 2 or 3 big plays and they do a crappy job of tackling Ramondre Stevenson. All those things not just could happen. In some ways, I almost feel like they are likely to happen.
Now, they all have to happen in concert, and then the Patriots also have to do one more thing, which is limit the number of possessions in the game overall, because they just you cannot give the 49ers crack after crack after crack. Benefit of the doubt is still deserved. Purdy and Shanahan will figure it out if you give them repeated looks, and they can't. Yeah, they're playing some games up front and stuff, but they're not mixing and matching like a Flores or a McDonald, right? They're pretty straightforward in what it is they do. Now, it's nice that they have great safeties. They can rotate coverages, things like that. But you give them multiple, you got to limit the game. You got to shorten the game. And ultimately, it just comes down to, it's so cliche. We roll our eyes every time Kyle says it. In this game in particular, it feels extremely prescient. You cannot turn the damn ball over if you're the 49ers. You can't do it. You can never do it. But in this one, all you're doing is giving them life. And I want to be very clear about this. If the 49ers lose on Sunday, and I think that the line would indicate that they won't, so did last week's line, should note. But if the 49ers lose on Sunday, it's done. It's over. We're calling it. You're not coming back from 1-3. You're not doing it. Sorry. I don't care how talented you are. You're not coming back from 1-3.
You don't think they can make the playoffs if they lose on Sunday?
No, I'm calling it DEFCON 1.
Wow. I think that's premature, but whatever. All right, couple last ones before we get out
about it.
Couple last ones.
Yeah.
Here's Tim Herron.
All right, This happened this week. A lot of people had a lot of thoughts on this. This is the Reds, Indians, Reds, Guardians, whatever. At Progressive Field, Friedel, trying to break up a perfect game here.
Yeah.
And he bunts. Here we go.
Here's Tim Herron. Bunt try. Herron flip is late, and the perfecto spoiled on a bunt base hit by T.J. Friedel. Here's Tim Herron. Bunt try.
Yeah.
Herron flip is late, and the perfecto spoiled on a.
All right, so it's a 2-0 game in the 7th. Friedel bunts against Herron. There was a combined perfect game through 6, but it's not, one guy's perfect game. It's a combined perfect game.
Yeah.
Baseball's unwritten rule is that the first hit's got to be a clean hit. Some people were saying, and you see Jimenez here. I mean, it's not like there's.
No, he's giving the side eye, the straight on scowl.
In a sport like baseball where nobody, everything's muted and it's like you have to really look. This is irate. Watch Jimenez here. This is baseball irate. This is out muted.
The perfecto spoiled on a bunt base hit by T.J. Friedel.
Yeah,
that was baseball irate where he's shaking his head like that. Yeah. That was his baseball irate. Yeah. What do you think?
I couldn't give a.
How do you feel? Friedel is Friedel going to get drilled? Should he get drilled? Do you believe in the unwritten rules? Are they stupid? Give me your thoughts.
You lost me completely at the term combined perfect game. The fuck do I care about a combined perfect game? Also, it's a 2-0 game. So I got an idea. If you don't want to lose your sacred combined perfect game that no one would ever talk about in the history of baseball in perpetuity if it were to have happened, I don't know, field your position. Yeah, just a concept, field your position. He brought the tying run to the plate by getting on first. You trying to win the game, or are you trying to appease some unwritten rules so that some fugazi perfect game can continue? I could not give less of a shit. I couldn't. And you know what? All these unwritten rules stuff, I get it. That's how they want to police themselves. Keep that shit to yourself. I don't care about it anymore. I can't even pretend to feign reverence to all of the nonsense that is happening in baseball on a day-to-day basis that they pretend is so important, and just all it does is gatekeep the game and make it less accessible by being so stuffy and unnecessary. Baseball is an incredible, fascinating sport, and it is just constantly being ruined by multiple factions trying to make it as boring as possible all the time.
I just think that, you know what, the game, they've already, stop screwing the fan. Stop. I mean, I hate the screwing of the fan. It's already bad enough. It's like the greatest part as a kid about going to a baseball game is you didn't know when it was going to end. Now it's like, you know what? We got to get out of here. Let's put a guy on second base and let's get the hell out of here. I don't like that. It's a bastardization of the game. All right. And every one of these little adjustments always hurts the fan. How about this? If I'm going to pay the kind of money that it takes to go to a freaking baseball game, and we're talking about a family of 4 to go to a baseball game in a major market, you're talking about over $1,000. Yeah. This is not baseball that we grew up with.
No.
And when I grew up with, and you could have $5, you could take $2 to get to the park, $4 for a ticket. I mean, if you had $10, you could have a day at the ballpark. Now it's like, good luck if you can get out with a family of 4 for $1,000.
There's no reason
People
to
are
go.
paying like $60 and $80 to park.
Yeah.
Before they even walk, for a baseball game. Okay, so my whole thing is, if it's that expensive, don't tell me to shut down my effort. So what, we're supposed to get a lesser show because you've got some baseball rule about the first hit and this and that. It's garbage. I want to see the best show. I want to see everybody go full bore. How about this? Let's just make a deal. You try as hard as you can to beat me. I'll try as hard as I can to beat you. I don't care if you steal bases up 7 runs, and you shouldn't care if I take a swing from my ass on 3-0 and all the different things that are baseball's unwritten rules that you can't do. How about we'll throw them all out the window and we'll just compete for 9 innings and give the fans an honest competition.
When everybody
why
had
is it so freaking hard to comprehend? Why is that not just like accepted practice?
Well, because all these rules showed up in the 1930s and 40s when everyone had to go back to plumbing jobs in the winter, and they were just trying to survive, almost literally, the 162 game season wearing full wool outfits. And it's like, hey, why don't we do this for each other? Because, well, no one's watching, and let's make sure that we uphold these standards, because archaic rules have a fun way of sticking around because no one has enough gall or audacity to say fuck you to things that should have been told to fuck off years ago. That's why. And so what you have are now a bunch of people whose entire personality is curmudgeonliness and this notion that everything that they love is being ruined because it's so pure, and that anything that changes is somehow an assault on their way of life. And it's just exhausting. It's exhausting listening to these people who are constantly trying to revert everything back to the way things were, twist themselves into logical pretzels when they just want to say, I'm confused and I don't like it, which is fine. Just say that. It's understandable. The fact of the matter is, the argument that you could make to say, hey, this is why you don't do it, is because I guess for entertainment value, what would be the coolest thing to come out of that game? Oh, I saw a perfect game. That would be cool. Until you have to put the caveat on it to whomever you tell that to, which is like, oh, who threw it? Like four guys threw the perfect game. And then suddenly it doesn't seem so cool.
Oh, it's going to be the accepted practice in 3 years. I mean, the way things are going. That
is what it is. I'll say this. Baseball players are like too good. I'm at the A's game today, and they're playing a World Series game from the 70s between the Reds and the A's, and I'm watching them, and it's like they're playing wiffle ball in the backyard comparatively to what they're doing now. I mean, these guys are getting just cheese balls down the middle, and they're just rolling it to second. These guys sucked, and now I watch these guys, and it's like, you throw that pitch, it's going 400 feet the other way, no matter if this guy's first or last on the roster. Baseball players got too good, and all these archaic rules probably need to be pretty seriously adapted if the game's ever going to be really interesting again. But that's just me.
Let's play this real quick here.
Not just the A's leaving, it's the complete abandonment of Oakland sports fans by their teams. The Raiders were fickle, leaving, coming back, then leaving again. Warriors are still in the Bay, but there's nothing Oakland about their new digs. And now this. Other cities have lost teams, and it's gutting. To lose 3 is without precedent. You think Vegas is going to support the A's? Come on. The passionate, emotional goodbyes from those who love the team are to be expected. But ask yourself this. Have you heard even a single dissenting voice outside of Oakland? Anyone saying, oh, this is a great idea. You got it all wrong. This Sean Fisher guy, you got it wrong. He's a great guy. I haven't. This right here, this is just the worst of what sports can be. Heart goes out to you, A's fans.
Oh, well, at least he sent out the heart.
What do you think? I mean, today was the final day. What do you think? I mean, I've lived this, I've lived this whole thing, and I just think it's so ridiculous that a guy that was, the richest owner in sports, who could have built a stadium easily and spent, I don't know, what do you think a stadium cost? $1 billion? He's got like,
he literally said it would only cost $1 billion. He wanted to do a $12 billion thing. He was only going to spend $1 billion on the goddamn stadium.
But I mean, what do you think here? I mean, because I got lots of thoughts on this. On one hand, Wally Haas gave the Giants owners rights to the South Bay. Mm-hmm. And the Giants took a loan for hundreds of millions of dollars and made an investment, Dieter, in Pac Bell Park. Mm-hmm. And they used the South Bay territory in addition to their other territory. They used their territory to secure the loan.
Right.
Okay. And they used that territory as partial collateral for that loan. Mm-hmm. So that's how the bank knew that they were going to get paid back, because they knew they owned this territory and they had an exclusive in this territory. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, the Giant Stadium, which was projected to maybe be paid off, the mortgage, like within 20 years of opening, got paid off in 2007.
Yeah.
Okay. After 7 years, they paid off their mortgage.
Thanks to Barry.
So,
and what did the A's get for that? When the A's needed a hand,
and then
the A's needed some help, then the Giants decided to say, fuck you, we're not.
I understand why the Giants said fuck you initially, because it was based on their loan. And I talked to Larry Bear about it. He's like, hey, look, our loan is based on this. This is how we got the loan. Okay,
that
so
ended in 2007.
That's an argument. But since that point, they paid off their loan. Major League Baseball should have forced the Giants to give the A's the rights to the South Bay for the best interest of MLB and the baseball fans. And because the Giants no longer needed the South Bay, what exactly do the Giants have the South Bay rights for? They have a brand new stadium in downtown San Francisco. They don't deserve or should have the rights to the South Bay. And so who's the loser? The fans. The fans are the loser, because we lose American League ball. We lose a second team. And guess what? The problem is not the franchise. The problem is they don't have a stadium and they don't have an owner that anybody wants to support. And the whole thing has just gotten down to, I'm not going to spend any money. Oh, you're not going to spend any money? We're not going to spend any money to support it. And it's just gone from there. But you know what? If tomorrow the A's were sold to a different owner, they could be a viable, great franchise for MLB. Instead, they sit in the shadow of the Giants. Now they're headed to Sacramento for 3 years. They're trying to make their way to Vegas. I just, this reminds me so much of Clay Bennett and the Sonics moving to OKC. I just don't, that wasn't good for the NBA then. This is not good for MLB now. That's how I feel. And I feel now, since MLB did not force the Giants to give the A's the South Bay, they can't force, Fisher to sell. So Rob Manfred is literally sitting there with his thumb up his butt, with not a single way to impact this situation. And MLB's the big loser here.
Oh, yeah.
Long term, I think.
Oh, unquestionably. And I think that a commissioner worth his salary would have realized that, hey, this is a no-win scenario, because my job is to work at the pleasure of the Major League Baseball owners, but I have to look out for everybody else. And there are only about 7 or 8 owners who were against relocating the Oakland Athletics. And they were led by Peter Seidler, the late owner of the Padres. He hated that move. He thought it was stupid. And perhaps that was a shot at the Giants, because the Giants, by the way, benefit immensely from not having any competition in this market, which is why they sat idly by and let this happen, even though they could have helped. They had no inclination to help, because that was money out of their pocket. And it's the same reason the 49ers didn't do anything to help. Not that there was much that they could do to help, when the Raiders are saying we got to go. But there's a big difference between what happened with the Raiders and what happened with the A's, or is happening with the A's. No commissioner wants to boot an owner unless they have something heinous going on, right? Because all the other owners, that's a slippery slope, which is a shitty argument always, but that's how it's viewed. that, hey, if they can kick this guy out, they can kick us out too. In the NFL, it was going to be hellacious. And the Raiders hung around in Oakland for years because there was nothing going on in Las Vegas. They had relocation. Everything was fine. They were going to build in the city of industry and outside of LA. They couldn't get anything done with the Chargers there because both of the owners are broke boys. And so eventually Roger Goodell's like, we can't get him to sell it. He won't sell it. I don't even think he has the power to sell it. He split that thing up so many different ways. We're just going to have to do this for him. And so the NFL, and with Jerry Jones leading the way with Bank of America, got $800 million worth of loans and built Allegiant Stadium. And it was underwritten by the league saying, hey, we're co-signing it. Like you're a teenager, a college kid getting an apartment in a college town. Our parents are going to co-sign with us so that in case we don't pay rent, at least somebody can get billed. That's how they did it. No one's going to do that with Major League Baseball. No one's going to hold John Fisher's hand. And it's wildly evident that John Fisher doesn't know how to build anything in his life. I know that this sounds hyperbolic and extreme. This is a guy who inherited his money. He runs an investment firm who, from people I talk to, basically just invests in the Vanguard account. Like they have basic ETFs. They're not doing anything risky. They're not some, high volume hedge. They're just a 401k account. They're local financial advisors playing with a shit ton of money. And he gets a baseball team that he rightfully viewed as an investment. The goddamn LLC is Athletics Investment Group, LLC. That's the name of the company, not Oakland Athletics baseball team, Athletics Investment Group. And that team, that investment, I should be more specific, has been wonderful. Because over the last 17 years, the value of Major League Baseball teams has gone up significantly, if not exponentially. And he gets a dividend in the form of, what is it called? Revenue sharing. Because he's in a small market. By the way, the East Bay has 2.5 million people. It's bigger than Kansas City, Pittsburgh, Cleveland. All of these places. That's the East Bay. The whole thing is such a farce. And I kept asking myself, why didn't Major League Baseball do anything about this? Because you're right. This is only going to get worse from here. The reason Major League Baseball didn't do anything like this is because there's 25 other owners who are John Fisher too. They're all John Fishers. They don't give a fuck about the people or the fans or anything like that. They're all John Fishers. And all they're trying to do is keep getting their pile of money to keep growing. And frankly, Fisher's heir isn't that he thinks like that, because there are 24, 25 other owners who think that way in baseball. But in fact, that he hired such a terrible team president that he had no insulation. There was no one to actually run the show. And so there was nothing for him to sell. No one could do anything for him. And he let a legitimately great brand, an incredible opportunity, just waste away over 17, 18 years because he has no business sense and he's never built anything. And he hired a moron to run the day-to-day. That's John Fisher. And if you really want to put a bow on it, I mean, the thing that killed me most about today, and it hit me a little bit when I took my family to the game last Friday. We had friends in town. They wanted to see the Coliseum. Big baseball fan. Okay, we'll go. I take my daughter. She's turning 2 in a couple weeks. And that's where she saw her first game. And she's all excited. Baseball, baseball, baseball. So that fucking killed me because it's just up the street from us. I'm at the game today. I'm walking around the concourse. You see all these kids, man. They're wearing stomper hats, 7, 8 years old. Pulled them out of school. Having to explain to a 7 or 8 year old corporate greed. I mean, what? To see these kids, a steady stream of them, pardon the pun, at the final out, just weeping. Fuck John Fisher. Glad he got his money. If there's justice in this world, the next 5 years for him are fucking agony because none of this was necessary.
You know what? One thing. These franchises are toys for the wealthy. That's what they are. But they're also a civic situation. There's a relationship between cities and their franchises. So I really believe that you should be able to you should not be able to sell you should not be able to move a team and continue to own it. You should own it or sell it, but you shouldn't be able to move it and keep owning it, because what's happened is that these teams escalate in value at such a rate that people are dying to get a piece of an NFL team. People are dying. I mean, what did Tom Brady? What has he got? He's got a piece of an NFL team. I mean, well, Billy Bean. What has he got? He's got a piece of the pie. He's got a piece of ownership. So it's like people want these franchises because they escalate in value faster than any other asset ever does. So they're great investments. But you know what? You don't run it the same way when you're running it as an investment as you do when you're running it as a civic, a relationship with the fans in a city. And it's like, is it better for anybody but John Fisher that the A's go to Vegas? No. Was it better for anybody
they won't get there either.
Or Mark Davis that the Raiders wound up in Vegas?
Well, I do think that Jerry Jones and the NFL saw the writing on the wall with legalized gambling and the ability to put events on in Las Vegas. That's why they underwrote it. We're going to have a world-class stadium in Vegas. We'll own it. And if Mark Davis has to put his shitty team in there 8 times a year, so be it. But there's no benefit.
We're talking about baseball. We're talking about a summertime sport in the desert. I mean, it just doesn't seem like
you know what. And you would think in Las Vegas, Nevada. You would think in Las Vegas, Nevada, where it's a town literally built on suckers and taking their money, and with just hand over fist. Vegas is booming, right? Everyone's moving there. Good luck with the water issue, but just that even tourism is just up and up and up because the economy's good and idiots want to go and give the casinos their money. All these casinos are flush with cash, right? You would think that somebody would come up and be like, hey, John Fisher, we'll build the stadium for you. There's a couple of lines. Don't even read the contract. Here's just $1 billion free to build your stadium. No one's done it. They'll give them a little quarter of land on this 32-acre plot. Well, the state of Nevada will give him $300 million. He'll get these little trinkets. No one's just said, we'll build you a stadium. They built a stadium before there was a fucking hockey team.
Have you seen the renderings of the baseball stadium?
It's the same chatbot energy that wrote the open letter that John Fisher.
But how's that going to work? How's that going to work? How are you going to have an open air? How are you going to have an open air stadium in Las Vegas?
Well, it wasn't open. It was.
Yeah, it was open air.
I mean, that doesn't work. It doesn't work. And it was a glass
forever
ceiling,
miss machine. Can you just have a miss machine going the entire time?
Well, listen, there's a miss machine going somewhere in the Coliseum. I will say this. I loved how the A's framed it as like, let's say goodbye to the Coliseum as if they weren't abandoning a city. Like it's one thing when there's we're saying goodbye to Oracle Arena. Well, yeah, because we all know this arena sucks, even though it's a great basketball venue, but also they're over there. Like I can see their arena right there. Like it is not awesome that it's in San Francisco because I'm an East Bay guy, but they're over there. They're just there. It's still in the town or in the market, not specifically the town. They're leaving the market and they're like, oh, what great memories at the Coliseum. Meanwhile, I'm stepping in puddles. It's like, I don't see an appreciable water source. I mean, this place was a dump. And
it's so bad. It's ridiculous.
And then
I will say this. I've got great memories there. I was sitting there. First of all, I went to lots of games in the bleachers in college. That was a regular. I was a regular out there in college in the bleachers.
Got to do it.
Even though I wasn't an A's fan, but we went a lot.
Yeah.
And then I saw Ricky. I was there when Ricky Henderson stole third base and lifted it up and said, Lou Brock was the greatest. And to now, I am the greatest
of all time.
That was an incredible moment. Absolutely incredible moment. Game against the Yankees. I've seen some amazing things there. I mean, I did an interview in the A's dugout with Bill King. And he told me he was a fan of my show, and I was totally floored.
That's great.
and then other thoughts. I've been to concerts there. I've been to Raiders games there. I went to a monster truck thing there, which, was really cool.
I don't think that's going away. I think it's only going to be monster trucks from here on out.
Yeah. So anyway, hey, a couple last thoughts.
This, Larry. I do. It's an open-ended question, but what are we doing this for? John Fisher buys a team. It's supposed to be, you're a billionaire. These are the only fuckers who can afford to buy a team. When teams are moving around left and right, it's because it was owned by the guy who ran 4, sports equipment stores and got in because some, college friend said, hey, do you want to join the AFL? And you had to move the team around a lot because the team had to make money or it folded. That we're well beyond that point these days. You can appreciably lose tens of millions of dollars a year and never seriously dip into your overall wealth if you're a team owner, because only billionaires can own these teams now. If you're John Fisher, what the hell is the point of owning a baseball team if you're not going to have any fun owning it? What the hell?
It's a moneymaker, Dieter.
He's made more money.
Dieter, he's made more money on that franchise than he's made on anything else.
Yeah, he's also got more headaches off of it.
He's been carving out a $40 to $50 million general fund, sapping off for 15 years. We're talking, the guy's got close to $1 billion just from MLB. Plus the value of the franchise. He's been stalling, spending he's turned. It's you know what? He basically looks at the Yankees and says, you know what? This was haves versus have-nots, and this was unfair. So I'm just going to pocket all this cash, and it's going to be unfair in my direction. It's just really sad because their fans were great, and the fans were into it. We got to go. I got to go. I got to end this. KB Toy Store. Larry, when you first started your YouTube channel, you were never late. You sure have changed since you made it big time. Yeah. You have forgotten you're faithful. First of all, I haven't made it big time. I'm still in the process of making it big time. Okay. Give it time. As far as, tonight, what happened was I did the Niners Nightly from 6 to 7 in Santa Clara. I tried to make it to my kids' football game against Menlo Atherton and then back. And literally, I just got home at 9:10, had to plug all my stuff in, get it all set up. And so we're lucky that we got here when we got here. I apologize. I was 10, 15 minutes late, but just a lot of transit today. Law of Law says if Larry wasn't a legendary radio guy, he'd be a hard ass cop in Oaktown. No, those guys have far more guts than me. I would never do that. Mitchell and Ness, the way Dieter wears his hat tells you all you need to know about him policing sports fashion. What is? How does Dieter?
What that means?
What is? Because he's got hair in front. Is that what he's saying?
I think it's because it says Toronto Maple Leafs. I don't know.
No, he means you have hair in front. I'll say this. I'm very particular. I don't wear a lot of hats on the show, but I'm very particular about hats. There was a guy at the gym yesterday who had his ears tucked in the hat. That's a bad look.
Not for him.
You want the
ears?
That
guy was getting laid?
You want the ears to be on the outside of the hat.
Well, right? I have the issue here where I got such a big melon that I have to get specialty hats because otherwise you get the Fred McGriff way up there thing, and that's no good. I'm not sure.
It's got to have the right depth for your dome and that kind of thing. But to me, it's wear the hat.
Was it into
the ear, not over the ear,
flat brim? Listen to Deftones. Is that what's going on?
He may have had a neck tattoo.
Never trust anyone with a neck tattoo.
We got Dan. Dan says, "What do you guys think of Campbell's comments? Guy Haberman called them red flags. I didn't even see his comments. Did you?
I think he's a giant red flag on the field.
Yeah, Campbell is. It's and people at the beginning of the chat were like, Krug, you were going to go at whatchamacallit today, and you didn't. Sorensen. You got to be there in the room to kind of feel these things. You know what I mean? And you got to me, I pride myself on having the right feel and the right timing. So I don't get my head bitten off. I don't get my head bitten off a lot, but I also try to ask tough questions. But I'm not trying to show everybody how tough I am. You know what I mean? I don't want to make it about me. I want it to be about them. And, I vented a lot on Sorensen, But you know what? It is only week 3, and let's see. Okay, so the defense. I mean, I can sit there and play this. We can talk about this in a real fashion. The 49er defense, 23 points allowed, 21st in the NFL. Defensive efficiency, 25th. Defensive EPA, 24th. Yards per rush allowed, 21st. Yards per play, 30th. Third down conversion rate, 30th. Success rate versus the run, 28th. So defense is clearly my number one concern. But to me, it felt argumentative today to be like, Nick, are you going to replace Campbell or Yadam? But everybody knows that I think they should replace Campbell and Yadam. But it's a little knee jerk to demand it and ask, with all kinds of, fire. Hey, are you going to yank Campbell? Are you going to yank Yadam? It's a little knee jerk in a 17-week season. I'll say this. Yeah. I think you got to give it a couple of weeks. Now so nobody plays anybody in the preseason. Nobody plays their guys very much. I think the Niners didn't play their starters very much. So you don't find out a lot. So you take the first month and you find out who you are. Then we find out who the coach is by how well he adjusts to who they are. And so I don't want to be asking him super tough questions only to have his defense look great in the next couple of weeks. And then I look like I'm some hyper negative guy. I'd rather wait, give it a couple weeks, let it breathe, ask him some questions, but not such accusatory. I think Campbell should be out. I think it's not about Larry Krueger. You know what I mean? It's like, do I know football? Yeah. Do I have my own opinions? Yeah. And do I think I'm right? Yeah. But you know what? I can table it. That's all I'm saying. Dieter, give me your thought.
I'm with you. I think that.
What is Campbell's comments? Do you know? I mean,
no idea.
Okay.
Beautiful part about the Coliseum, no Wi-Fi today, so didn't see anything.
It's actually
kind of glorious. But I got so many words written because there was nothing else to do except watch baseball and write. I should try it more often. Regardless, listen, I don't know if Sorensen is the man or not. I can't tell you. Clearly, it's not just a scheme thing. Now, I do have issues with the schemes, but when you have personnel deficiencies, I think right now the bigger questions need to be addressed towards John Lynch, as in, what did you see in these guys? Why did you think this would work? Because, before I start getting in on the chef on how he's cooking the meal, I'm going to complain about the buyer who went out and got some clearly rotten ingredients. So that's where I stand on it. And it's on ultimately the coaches to make the most out of what they have. But I think you're spot on when it comes to September, when you don't do anything in the preseason. And this team literally didn't practice once as a whole team in the preseason. When you don't do anything in the preseason, it's impossible to make overarching judgments on a team before the calendar flips to October. Now, I will say this. They could be in such a bad spot once the calendar flips to October that it's very difficult to see any way out of it, as I alluded to before. What do they always say? You can't win the division in April in baseball, but you can lose it. You can do the same thing in September in the NFL. You can lose a playoff spot in September. You can't win one in September, but let's get through stage 1 of the season, which is the month of September, before any hasty judgments are made here. Plenty of football left.
All right, here we go. On the way out the door.
Yep.
Just the shortest of short answers. What's the score, Niners Patriots?
26-20 49ers.
26-20. Okay, I like that. I think it's going to be a little lower scoring for the Patriots. I'll go 26-10 49ers.
I really liked your special teams call, so that's where the 20 comes in. Also, you only need to get about 25 yards to get 3 points these days, so, more field goals.
Over under on Warriors wins. I read an article today that was entitled that the Warriors think that they're an improved team.
Yeah,
they think they're an improved team.
Said.
I we feel great about the team in the sense that we improved the team.
Yeah.
I don't think they improved.
Well,
the
they
team
weren't
at
going to
all.
say actually we're going to be
nuts.
worse.
They're crazy.
Yeah.
They're crazy. Their
the
best players are all getting older, and getting further away from their prime. It's like, you don't get it, bud. When you have your core players getting away from their prime, your entire ship is sinking, and you need something to offset that. They didn't do anything to offset that.
D'Anthony Melton won't offset that.
No, because he's hurt all the time. I mean, give me something that's real, man. Not Anthony
what about Jonathan
Melton.
Kuminga trying to prove that he's a 3 guard or the wing? Come on.
I mean, give me your over-under. What's your over-under? I'm going 38.
I mean, listen, it's going to be hard for me to ever take anything but the under given how things operate. I think they're probably a 41-41 team. I think they might, if they get fortunate, squeak into the play-in tournament again. I don't think they play basketball into May under any circumstances.
Does Farhan return in 2025? Yes or no?
No. That's not me wishing it. That's what I'm hearing.
Sources?
Let's go with sources.
Sources. That's going to do it for us. Dieter, when do you appear next on the leader? When are you on the radio again?
Larry, I don't know. You know, they had, I got shit going on. So, listen, I don't know. And that's for the best.
Are you going to be at camp tomorrow? No, you don't go on Fridays.
I don't go on Fridays.
It's kid duty.
So I'll see you on Sunday, baby.
Sunday, last week, very, very disappointed in both the meatloaf. What was the options last week? Wasn't it a meatloaf?
Last week in Los Angeles, California?
Or no. The last home game. The Jets game.
Week 1? Yeah.
Week 1, wasn't it? It was like a meatloaf and no, maybe that was in the workroom.
Well, listen, Larry, the Football Writers Association of America.
It was just a hot dog.
We negotiated that the NFL has to feed us in every meal. We did not negotiate the quality of the food, and that was our mistake.
What is your favorite thing to eat at Levi's?
Oh, my shoe. They have some it's in a cooler. If I got to do something, I'll do that. But
look at that.
That's about all you can do. Everything else is a puck. They charge you $35 for that puck if you were on any other level, though. So I'm not going to complain.
The chicken tenders are a little on the dry side. Dieter, have a great time. We'll see you on Sunday. Thanks to Dieter. Thanks to Better. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle. Thanks to Sharp Corners. Thanks to Kev. Thanks to all of you guys. Just thanks. And tune in tomorrow night for Niners Nightly. Yes. Kevin Kern is going to join me.
Nice.
From NBC Boston.
Yeah.
And we'll talk Patriots tomorrow night on the Krug Show. Join me tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. On the Krug Show and that will be from Levi's. Wow. Also join me tomorrow morning at 8:50. I'll be on with Murph and Marcus. Mm-hmm. Then at 9 with Damon. At 10:45 with Chase Sr.
Wow.
Shanahan talks at I think 12:30 or something like that. And there's practice afterwards, or maybe the other way around. Big day tomorrow, and there's always some good locker room stuff. And so that's it. Have a great night, everybody. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Can't